Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What's up? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera. And here at the Reforge Your Life show, we love to show you that the comeback is more than possible. And today, I'm super excited about the guest I'm going to bring to the show. Y'all are going to love her energy, her story. She's the owner of the Boss Benefits. Lore Soto, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thank you for coming through. And I'm grateful to be able to share this platform with you. And Lore, I've heard your story, but there's no way that I could tell it anywhere close to as good as you can. I'm not qualified to. So I'd love for you to share your story with the audience.
Okay. So what to say? I worked in retail like my entire life and and I have a degree in psychology, so you can do the math there. I don't know how that happened, but worked in retail and then was kind of at a crossroads right about the time I was going to turn 40 and like left my job and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but knew that retail didn't really age very well with you. So wanted to try something else, fell totally backwards into this insurance thing. I went to an interview and they are purposely vague about what they're interviewing for, because honestly, if they said it was health insurance, nobody would show up. So I went, fell backwards into it, felt like I wasn't really doing anything else at the time. And so decided to try it and really kind of took to it like a fish to water and worked with this company for almost 6 years. And, you know, when I left the company, I was in the top 25 nationally producers. I had a great career there, but it always sort of didn't sit right with my soul. Like some of these people in insurance, you know, the reason they have this, you meet a lot of unsavory characters, I would say. So, it didn't really feel right with my soul. I was making money hand over fist, but the people that I was encountering and kind of the way that they did business, I didn't really appreciate. And so I wasn't cut from the same cloth. They ended up letting me go, terminating my contract for cause, and overnight took all of my income. It was wild how they did it. And again, probably speaks to their character. So I was kind of had my hand forced to go out and start our own thing. And so started a brokerage, and it honestly, 3 years later, after all this happened, it was the best possible thing. But you're right. It's not about the setback. It's about the comeback. And man, it's been a wild ride for sure.
Yeah, I love wild rides, man. Those wild rides teach us a lot.
They do. You're right. You're so right.
So tell us about some of those lessons that you did learn through that wild ride.
Yeah. So also, everything whatever's going on in our life is going to show up somehow in your body. And so, I was under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure when I was with that organization, and constantly having inner conflict about not feeling like we were a cut of the same morality. And so I didn't, I was shackled there with my golden handcuffs, but I also knew that I needed to be somewhere else. And I think the way that it showed up in my body, I'm a big believer that I don't know that things happen for a reason, because then we would have to be able to explain pedophilia and things that just are inexplicable. Right. But I think that, things happen in your life so that you can learn a lesson. And if you don't learn the lesson, they're going to keep repeating. It's going to come back harder and harder and harder until you're absolutely forced to learn whatever you were supposed to learn. And for me, that showed up in my life in 2023 as a breast cancer diagnosis, because I had been under all of this stress and I had known that I was having inner conflict. I just couldn't break away from it. And the universe kept saying Lore, this isn't right. You need to do something about it. And I didn't. And so it showed up as a breast cancer. So in all of this, the icing on the cake, I had a breast cancer diagnosis. And so I've learned so much from that, plus coupled with this experience, you just never, You always go with your gut. Like number one, you always trust your gut. I just, at this age, I'm almost never wrong. Like when I size someone up, they're going to fulfill the need. Like you can do that very quickly. Never like, compromise who you are, because it will lead to such internal conflict that you'll make yourself sick. Like in some way it will show up. And just, you can make a lot of money and still do good. Like you don't have to be, to make money and to be successful, you don't have to undercut people or do it in an underhanded way. And so those are probably the three biggest lessons that I've learned in this ride. And I feel like the lessons are coming all the time, but those are probably the ones that were glaringly obvious throughout this journey.
Yeah, the not having to undermine people to make money is a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of an abundance of money out there, and we all have access to it.
Yeah.
And it's our duty to go out there and be able to get it and get it the right way. Because when you get it in a way where you don't have to cut the corners, where you don't have to fuck nobody over, man, it's so much more of a fulfilling achievement. And it leaves that emptiness away, where you don't have to feel empty inside because you got it the wrong way, or you got it a way where you had to cut corners, or a way where you didn't really deserve it. And
Yeah.
there's something powerful about earning it properly. And man, it's such a fulfilling feeling. It really is. So I'm curious though, because I want to kind of go back to the challenge for a minute before we get back on to the other side. What was it like going through the challenge of finding out that you had breast cancer? And because you said you ignored it
Yeah.
for a little while, so there was a fear there that you didn't want to face.
So no, so the breast cancer story is really interesting. So I am constantly on a quest. Like I probably, like, I like to work. I'm a weirdo. Like I really enjoy working. And
This
so
means
I'm
you love doing
always,
what you do, Lord. There's nothing
I
wrong with
do.
that,
I
girl.
do love doing what I'm doing. But I am always on this quest to like be superhuman. So I'm always looking for like things that'll give me more energy and I can do more. So I actually was going to have like some, like I was meeting with a nurse practitioner about like hormone replacement therapy, like this, pellet hormones that you can insert. And she's like, they like put them in your arm or your leg or something. And it gives you, it's supposed to, once you regulate your hormones, it's supposed to give you like tremendous energy. So I go to have this consultation and she's like, yeah, you're a great candidate, but we need to have a current mammogram and pap smear before we do any of that. And I was like, I want to do this right. So like, let me go do that. And so I go and have this mammogram and they find breast cancer. So it was like, it was very weird. I was actually like 6 or 7 months past when my mammogram was supposed to happen. So, but like in hindsight, even though I'd missed the deadline, it was actually very fortuitous, because if they had done it in January when they were supposed to, the cancer may not have been there. So when they found it in August, it was there. They got to it pretty quickly, but it's such a weird thing. It feels like it was a lifetime ago, but also feels like it was yesterday, and feels like it was another person. I am such a believer that I don't like, if I don't want something to stick around, I don't give it any attention or energy. It's like that annoying person at school. If you just can get like talk your kid into like ignore them, they're just trying to get a rise out of you. Like that's how I deal with everything in my life. If I don't want it to stick around, I just don't give it any air. So like there were people in my life that didn't even know I was going through the breast cancer stuff. And I mean, they put me through it. Like I had 2 surgeries. I had 16 chemotherapy treatments. I had 20 radiation treatments and a partridge in a pear tree. Like, I mean, I went through it. And so like for people back home, because I live in Texas now, but I am from Missouri. I'm from Kansas City. And there were lots of people that didn't even know that I was going through that, because I just wasn't vocal about it. And it wasn't like a denial thing as much as it was like, I'm just not going to feed this. I'm not going to give it any air. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm going to show up and do what I need to do. I'm going to make everyone happy because, I'm going to do all the things that they say that I should, but I'm not going to give it any, I don't like to talk about it. I don't want to retell the story. Your wires start to cross. You don't know who you've said what to. It's just such an exhausting process. The whole thing was not fun. I 10 out of 10 do not recommend. It was not a good time, but here I am. So it had to happen. I mean, it's part of the journey for sure.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I just want to take the time to acknowledge you because your strength, your resilience, and your will to survive and move forward shouldn't go unrecognized. That's powerful, right?
Thank you.
Because yeah, no, you're welcome. And I'm glad that I thank God that you did push through and be able to become the powerful force that you are today, because that's needed. Because there's a lot of women out there who do struggle with breast cancer
Yeah.
and who allow it to get the best of them. And you're a perfect example of, you're not a victim of your circumstances and conditions. They don't control your destiny. You do. And you have the power within you to overcome anything. I mean, man, you said how many radiations? 20?
20 radiation, 16 chemotherapy. It was a thing. Yeah. It was, yeah, it's not, it's kind of weird. My mother had a very early breast cancer diagnosis. They're not genetically related as far as we know, but like she was diagnosed at 39. I was diagnosed at 46. So it was like, I kind of lived my whole adult life kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, like waiting. Like I didn't think it was like if, I thought it was a when, just because I've always kind of assumed. And so even that sort of preparation, and maybe I manifested it into my life. So like be careful of that as well. There's definitely power in that. But I even like having sort of anticipated it, you don't anticipate it. I mean, like you just think you're invincible and it's never really going to happen to you on some level. So it was definitely a weird experience, but I didn't have like, I'm very fortunate. I did not have it as terribly, like for all that you just heard that I went through. It wasn't the most fun I've ever had. I mean, for sure, but I was super healthy going into it. So I didn't have any comorbidities. I don't have hypertension. I don't have high cholesterol. Like I didn't have anything, like I was healthy. So that really did help in my journey as well. Like I wasn't as sick as a lot of people are. So I was pretty fortunate, but
Were you
it
also
just,
exercising at that time?
yeah, I actually, during chemotherapy, I was walking 4 miles a day. Like there's a track around my house and I would walk it twice a day. And so like, yeah, I was still moving. I think I learned a lot more about nutrition. I mean, this cancer thing, especially in like my line of work, I get to talk to people all the time and people are getting diagnosed more and younger all the time. Like, for anyone who doesn't think we're ingesting it, or the pesticides and the chemicals and all of the things, if you don't think that that is taking its toll, you're not paying attention. Like it's pretty crazy once you really start to go through and learn about nutrition and the things that we put into our body. It's pretty wild. Like I think I just grew up at a time when that wasn't really a part of the conversation. Like, like we weren't really talking a bunch about nutrition as we do now. Like I laugh that like my kids go to school with like an Owala, like a water bottle. Like every morning, like we have to fill their water bottle and send them to school. And I'm like, we had to be grossly dehydrated in the 80s because nobody ever talked to us about drinking water. Like, and these kids don't go anywhere without a water bottle. So it's like just how much we know now versus then. It's just such a different world. It's crazy.
It really is. No, in the 80s, we were drinking juice, soda, and there was no water.
Totally.
Was not even in the diet, man. It's so crazy.
And milk, and like I
Yeah,
am so lactose intolerant that like I don't know how I didn't feel terribly for a whole decade. I
right.
don't know, but
And they used to tell us milk was so good for us, right?
yeah. My dad was here this weekend for the holiday and he said something about milk because we always have almond milk or
Right.
we'll do like a Fairlife or something, and he's like, "Oh, milk, and it's so great." And I'm like, "It's actually not that great for you." But he's so like a product of his generation, right?
Yeah.
So like it is what it
But the
is.
beliefs will eat you up, man.
Yeah, it's wild. Our world is crazy.
So I'm curious though, because you said you came from retail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now you own your own health insurance company. We'll get into that in a little bit. But what was some of the challenges? I mean, you had the breast cancer, which is a huge challenge. I want to talk about the challenges you went through with that. But what was now was the breast cancer? Was that while you were in the transition period? Was it after you already made the transition? When did the breast cancer come into play?
It was like almost a year after I had already made the jump.
Okay.
So I think it was just like the tail end of like the universe handing it to me, like
Yeah.
to make me make changes in my life.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
That's good. Yeah. Because I'm a big believer in, God, the universe, the infinite intelligence, whatever you believe, whatever the audience believes. I mean, that's your belief, right? But believing that sometimes source, right, will give us that challenge in life to make us
yeah,
stronger and to help us overcome that is what's on the other side of that challenge is
yeah,
where the growth is, where the greatness is. And that sounds like exactly what happened to you, because here you are, you're transitioning from retail into a whole new world of owning your own business. That comes with challenges in itself. And then boom, you get hit with breast cancer. And it's like, wow, all
yeah,
this at once. So
yeah.
I want to talk about right before the breast cancer, because there's challenges in making that transition. And
Mhm.
there's people that might, are in the audience that are listening, or might know someone who's going through a transition that's similar. And I want to discuss the challenges that you were faced while going through that transition.
Man, I mean, I think that they're every day, right? Like it's so interesting because the line of work that I'm in, starting an agency, being an agency owner, owning your own brokerage is so different. It's such a different hat that you have to wear. And I still have to sell. So like I still take clients. That's definitely a different hat. But now being in charge of not just my own destiny, but like the choices that we make will affect agents, and agents that are signing on to like help with your dream because they believe what you're putting out there. Like that's definitely a different responsibility that some people don't take seriously. I take it extremely seriously because you can't I just don't ever want to be in the world trying to do harm to anyone, whether it's intentional or not. And so I think, sometimes we can cause harm even just through like a negligence or an ignorance, and I just don't want to do that. So I try to be very thoughtful about all of the things that we do, but I think the lessons come all the time. But probably the one, like just off the top of my head, one of the biggest ahas is like you have to be so nimble and ready to pivot when you're moving into entrepreneurship, because if you are set in your ways or you're waiting for the one thing that you did to pay off and you don't cut it before it takes you out, like you got to have like this balance of like you got to be nimble, you got to not be afraid to do something different, but you also have to not cut it too fast before you could see if it was actually going to work. And that is such a fine line that you walk
Yeah.
in entrepreneurship, but like you got to be willing to roll with it and like the changes. And so that's
What,
been eye
what
opening
was
because I
what
tend
was
to be
one of
kind
the
of set in
big
my
things
ways.
you had to pivot from?
Oh my gosh, it's all the time. It's like our entire model of how we wanted to bring agents in, different carriers that we're using, just learning a whole new like portfolio of products as a pivot. The thing about insurance too is like it's probably true of like most industries, but I've never felt it as much as I have in insurance. It's such an incestuous business. Like the people that you meet today do not make enemies with, because you will see them again. They will be part of your journey. All of the big players all show up. They just kind of job hop or whatever. So like, my partner tends to be a little bit more like, it didn't work and he breaks up and he's like done for good. Me, I tend to like hold on to people forever, especially now because I know that they're going to circle back and be a part of our life. That's not always easy to do, because when it doesn't work out in business, you sometimes just want to walk away, but to bite your tongue and like keep the relationship and like maintain that, definitely there's a skill to it and an art form, and it's just the smarter way to do it. You never know when you'll need these people again.
That's good. That's good. You want to make sure. That's why it's so important to learn how to build relationships. It's
Totally.
so important to be a person of integrity, not just a person of integrity to other people, but a person of integrity to yourself. Because if you're not a person of integrity to yourself, you can't be a person of integrity to the people around you.
Totally.
And don't burn no bridges, man. You don't want to burn bridges. That's the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do.
Yeah,
because like you're saying, what Lori's saying is on the money. I mean, you never know when that person's going to come around, and you're going to, number one, you're going to see that person again, and number two, how you could be able to leverage the relationship that you have with that person, and
totally.
where you could be there to help them, they could be there to help you. So it's so important to keep those bridges safely open and not closed and not burned.
Yeah.
So we spoke about the pivoting, and I'm sure the breast cancer was a huge pivot in your life. Tell me what was going through your mind in that moment when you find out you have breast cancer, and what were some of the challenges you faced with that coming into the place a year into owning the business?
Yeah, I mean, so this is wild, and again, I am the anomaly. But I was really not as sick as one as like what you see on TV or as like a lot of people go through. So I was very fortunate. But like, it would be that I would block off just enough time to have whatever treatment I was supposed to have, and then inevitably someone would like schedule on my calendar right after I was finished, and I would get to the car at the oncology office and I would open up my laptop and I would talk about insurance like right after I had chemo. Like it was a wild ride. And so like you try being an agent in our office right now that comes to me with an excuse, right? It's like, come on guys. Like I sold insurance while I was like going through chemotherapy. I'm sorry your dog ate your homework, right? So like, but again, I'm like the weirdo in this, but duty calls. I'm a single mother. I've got kids that depend on me. Like I support this household. So nothing to it but to do it. But I think that there were so many thoughts going through your head. But for me, it was just like, the Dory, like when Dory says, just keep swimming on Finding Nemo. Like, I mean, that's it. Like, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. But I think like, I never, because as I said, I've never had a surgery in my life before I had this lumpectomy. I had never been in the hospital besides maternity leaves, like, or maternity situations. So like, I really had no true understanding of how any of this stuff worked. And so in that process, to learn how to be your own advocate, to ask questions and to like push back when you didn't agree with something. Cause in reality, I didn't love or want to do or agree with any of the treatment, but I defer to them because they're the experts. But do I think that there's more than one way to get rid of cancer? Probably. And if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't have gone like the traditional method. I would have been getting like hyperbaric chambers and like vitamin C infusions at the posh place in Florida that, does alternative healing. So like, I do think that in this process, it made me such a better agent, like as corny as that sounds, because I had never really been through a huge claims process. And so now I'm so much better equipped to really understand and help my clients through those situations. And I have such a different feeling and of importance about how to truly cover yourself. So I do think like it helped a lot in my job. I think it helped a lot as a human. Like I'm so much more grateful. My dad, like I said, my dad was here for Thanksgiving. I must have said to him 100 times, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here, which would not have been necessarily something I would have vocalized. I would have felt it, but I wouldn't have vocalized it before. And now I never let anything fester. If something bothers me, I just say it and so we can get past it. If I need someone, if I'm thinking about someone, I send a text message to say, I don't need a thing and you don't even need to respond back. I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you and I love you. Like, so it just like I'm a different human.
Yeah.
I'm a different mother. I mean, if you're paying attention and you allow it to, it will change you in the better in all the ways imaginable. And I think that that's how I feel after this experience. I cut out a lot of the people that had no business, that were toxicity. I will run the hell away from someone if they look like they're trouble or they're messy. I will get out of there because like I don't have time for that in my life. So
That's an important one to remove anything and anyone that's toxic from your life.
yeah,
And sometimes it's people that we care about, and you know what? You got to love them from a distance, because
totally.
you can't, You're not going to allow somebody in your space that's going to bring that toxic energy, because guess what? Then that toxic energy is going to seep into your life, and it's going to create that catabolic draining energy in your life. And
Mhm.
who wants that? Especially
Yeah.
because we control who we allow into our space and what we allow into our space. And that's what our environment is about. And that's why it is like you are who you surround yourself with. You surround yourself with
Totally.
people who inspire you. Guess what? You're going to be inspired to do more with your life. I'm curious though, what, because you said that the old you would have held those feelings in, not expressed to your father, for example, how grateful you are to have him with you in that moment, and you started to appreciate things more in life. What was that turning point
Yeah.
in that mindset?
I think that first of all, I have a very strong like presence, a very strong energy. And sometimes like even it could be described as kind of a masculine energy. Like I tend to like take control of the thing, the whatever situation I'm in. That can be your best attribute and your worst Achilles heel in business, right? Because people are very like I've had men and women that I'm intimidating to because I am so outspoken. And so when you're kind of putting on this facade for like the business you find yourself shutting down a lot of that stuff. Like you're not as expressive, you're not as like vulnerable because those things feel vulnerable. Like we see crying as a vulnerability. Like that's so silly. Like sometimes you're just
Yeah.
going to cry. I cried at It's a Wonderful Life. I've seen the movie 7,000 times. I cried at it this weekend. So like I've opened Pandora's box over here. You spend so much time shutting that stuff down that it carries over into your personal life and not with my kids because I'm like super weirdly affectionate with my children. Like telling them all the time. I'm like, do I tell you I love you too much? Because I do. I adore them. But like with other people, I was not quite as expressive. And you just start to understand, although I feel like super blessed in the whole journey. There is still a mortality to it. Like you still are realizing you're mortal and you're going to die at some point. And maybe it's not today, but maybe it is tomorrow. Like you just don't know. So like just like acknowledging it and being cognizant of it and nobody wants to think about dying, but trying to lead everything that I do with like a sense of gratitude. It just makes for such a happier day. I also started to like examine like, I'm a big like I like a lot of hip hop and like rap music. I mean, I'm like a total 90s suburban mom, right? Like Biggie's, like Tupac, like the whole thing. So,
Love
but as
it.
much as I like that music, like listening to that during your workday, it is kind of seeping in and it's affecting you. And there's like a time and a place for it, but like it starts to sort of affect you. Or like my Netflix feed, like I realized that it was all murder and like homicide, like everything. So I'm like, that can't be good. So there's just like so many things that once you really start to dissect like all of the stuff that's like preying on you that you
Yeah,
realize or don't,
yeah,
like, or what your algorithm's doing when you're scrolling or how much you're scrolling. Or, I try to take very mindful time away. Like I got really back into reading. Like I'm a pretty avid reader, but like I set goals for reading this year because that is a good time to like decompress. I have for our holidays, this is so corny. For our holidays, I buy these gigantic like coloring sheets because I love to color. I'm not an artist. I cannot draw to save my life. Like stick
right.
people are challenging, but I love to color. And so we'll have a sheet out and we'll like color as a family and we'll put Christmas movies on. And like, it's super relaxing and it's very like fills your soul, like chicken soup for the soul, as corny as
Mhm.
that sounds. But like, I'm so much more cognizant of like all of those things because my life can get really busy. And so if you don't stop to like be thoughtful and think through some of this stuff, before you realize it, all this time has passed and you've been feeding yourself all this crap and not saying the things that matter. And so it just makes, if you're paying attention, if you are paying attention, something like this will change you in all of the right ways.
Yes.
So
And that's a really good point, because life can get busy,
yeah,
especially as an entrepreneur. It could get busy, it could get lonely, and it's important to be aware of what you're allowing into your space when you're going through your feed, when you're going through your Netflix, when you're going through the music you listen to. And listen, I'm a big hip hop head too, 90s hip hop all
Yeah.
day, every day.
All day.
But I mean, you're right. There's a time and place for it.
Yeah.
And there has to be a time and place that you're finding, whatever it is for the audience, whatever it is out there that you're finding that's a chicken soup for your soul, right? If in this case for Lori, it's coloring, right? For me, it's prayer and meditation. And for someone else, it could be, sitting with your family and having a conversation about things that light you up. Whatever it is, that could be that chicken soul for your soup, taking that time for yourself, taking that time with your family to disconnect from the rest of the world and finding what it is that's your chicken soup is so, so important for your success. So thank you for bringing that up because it's so important for the audience to pick up on that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what was some of the limited beliefs that you had to crack through to get to where you are now and have the new belief system that you have?
Well, so yeah, so as confident as I probably come off, I'm actually my biggest critic. I'm pretty hard on myself. I always have been. Like I it's just I'm kind of a perfectionist in a lot of ways. And abandoning everything that I understood and starting a brand new career and then like starting a business and just all of the things that were like heaped onto that pile, it's really pretty easy to lose sight of like what you bring to the equation. And I would oftentimes find myself doubting, like kind of feeling imposter syndrome. Like, am I really deserving of this?
Mhm.
What did I do that was different? Am I special? Like what is happening? And so, I have two tattoos. I have on my wrist, I have three hearts that are my kids.
Right.
And then on my on my thigh, I have a tattoo that says "Bet on you."
Yeah.
Because I have to say to myself, even at this point, like, and I would say that I've had a lot of success in my industry, and I'm super grateful. But even to this day, I can find myself sort of doubting decisions or like, is that really the right thing to do? And do I even know what I'm talking about? And like kind of feeling like it's all kind of above my head. And then I have to like stop and say, Lori, if you just bring the Lori to the situation, it's gonna work out. Like you don't have a first gear. You are not capable of failure. Like you're gonna work this thing until you figure it out. So bet on you. As long as you bet on you, it's gonna work out. So like don't spend your energy and your time worrying about all of that other stuff. Just do you. Just bring Lori to the equation and it's going to work itself out. So that's tough. And I still have to remind myself. I mean, I had to put ink on my body to like, so I could think about it,
Yeah.
right? Like it's that important. But, failure comes success. Like you got to have
Absolutely.
the failure to get to the other side. And so I am grateful for all the slips and falls, truly, like in hindsight. But yeah, I am the X factor. I just have to remind myself, like you're the X factor. As long as you do you, it's going to work out. So
Yes. And man, I always say that because I couldn't agree with you more. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm my biggest critic,
yeah,
without a doubt. And I
most of
always,
us type A's are. That's how it
yeah, that,
works.
that goes without
Yeah.
saying, without a doubt. And I always say though that I'm my biggest asset. My big, I like, I the biggest investment I have, it's not in the stock market, it's not in oil and gas, it's not in real estate, it's in myself. I'm my biggest investment. And I think that bet on you is something that a lot of people out here that are listening can pick up on because it's so important. Bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Bet on yourself before you bet on anything else, anyone else. You got to put yourself first, and you're going to be the biggest asset and your biggest return on investment
Mhm.
if you play it right.
Totally.
Um,
100%.
so I'm a big believer in when we get when we crack through that limited belief system and we build this new belief system, that there's core values that are uncovered, and everyone's core values are different, but we all lean into those core values when we're going through difficult times, and difficult times are still going to come up. Life's going to throw curveballs. You're going to get knocked to your knees. How are you going to get back up? You get back up by leaning into those core values. So what are some of the core values that you uncovered along your journey?
Um, so work ethic. I think I could probably work my way through any problem. Like, I am fortunate, like the career that I have, if I need something more, I just go work more and I'm going to help more people and I'm going to like see a return. Right. So, and that's something like I can't, when new agents are coming to us, like I can't give you a good personality and I can't give you a work ethic. If you can bring me those things
That's
as
right.
part of who you are, I could teach you the rest. But if people don't like you and you don't want to get up and get to work, there's not a thing that I can do for you, right? Like those are, you got to have those within. And that was even important to me. Like when I was transitioning from the one career to the next and I kind of had the downtime, I didn't want my kids to ever see me not working. Like I want them to know their mom is a hustler and like, mom's always going to knock it out. And so I went and took an overnight job while I was getting my insurance license and like making this change. I went and took an overnight job stocking at Walmart because I didn't want my kids to ever see me not working. Like it's just that is to me, that's who I am. I worked since I decided very young that I wanted to be able to buy things. Like I liked things and I was never going to depend on anyone else to give them to me. So like work ethic was everything. So I worked from like the second that I could. So I think that that's important. I think consistency is really critical because a lot of people try something and abandon it immediately. Like didn't even give it time to see if it was going to work, or they'll do something and they'll expect to have like all of the success overnight. Well, that's not going to happen. It's not like the first time you go to the gym and you lift weights, you're not going to be, ripped the next day. You got to do it consistently in order to see a result. And so consistency is so vital, and routines and disciplines, especially as a business owner, because you can pretty easily, your time can get pulled. Like a lot of people want a piece of you. So like grounding yourself in routines and disciplines and consistency is everything to keep like your life going.
Mm.
And then just honesty. Like I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm not putting up with anyone's BS that's dishonest. Like I can spot it if you're ugly in this way about this thing. I have a big old wall up now, because if that was no problem for you to be dishonest in that moment, what's going to happen for you to be dishonest or to take advantage of me? So like honesty to me is like a non-negotiable. So those are probably the biggest ones for me: work ethic, consistency, honesty, and just
Yeah.
like be a good person. Like just be a good person. Like, there's a lot of money to be made in this world. You don't have to be ugly to do it. Like, you don't know what people are going through. And I can have a really short fuse. I mean, but I'm also one that like, if I have a short fuse with someone, I'll say, I'm so sorry that this is not about you. Like, I'm frustrated by the situation, because like, we're all human. We're going to have our moments, but just like,
Yeah.
if you go out in the world and you try to be a good person, the rest of it's probably going to work out.
And
Like,
I
just be
think
decent.
something you just said is really important also, right? I mean, those core values, by the way, extremely powerful. Honesty is vital in the world we live in. Um, Work ethic, you're not going to get anywhere without it. It's just not.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something towards the end there about um just apologizing if you fuck up, and say, you know what, listen, I apologize, I fucked up, that wasn't the right thing in that moment, and it's okay to fuck up. It's okay to say, you know what, my bad, this one's on me. I'm not perfect, because
Yeah.
nobody is, and we all go through those mistakes, and failing is part of success without a doubt. I mean, fail stands for first attempt in learning,
Yeah.
and recognizing that, but realizing that your failures or your fuck ups, and your bumps in the road they don't have to dictate your future. They don't dictate your future if you don't allow them to. They can help you be able to propel into your future, but they don't have to dictate. They don't have to decide what your future is going to be. Lori, I'd love for you to tell the audience what you have going on now and where they could find you.
Yeah, for sure. So we are an insurance brokerage. We help with all things health insurance here. Well, we all 50 states actually and DC. So it's a lot of licenses, but we can help everywhere. People need us more now than ever before. And honestly, there is zero charge to work with a broker, an expert on this matter. And it's that important and that vital. Like, not only did I have all the health insurance, I mean, you can't even imagine how much coverage I had when I was diagnosed with cancer, but I had, critical illness policies. I had short-term disability. I had my regular health insurance. I had an accident policy. Like, I have all the coverages, and there are so many different ways to be covered that it's so vital that you work with someone who understands it and can make sure that you're protected in all those ways. And so, yeah, we are the benefits boss, and you can go to connect with Lore. Now, my name is spelled Lore. My real name's Dolores. So that's Lore is Dolores chopped up. So connect with Lore, LORE.com, and get on my calendar and let's talk about it. Like, if you want to just talk about some of this and have more dialogue about it, like, I'm down for that. I work virtually, so I always need friends. Like, let's be friends. Or if you need help with insurance, like, if it's not me, work with someone, because it's that important. And I fully believe I'm here and things went the way that they did because I was really like proactive and dealt with all of the adulting things as far as my health insurance went before I ever was diagnosed. And that's really, really important in our world today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all that stuff's going to be in the show notes, y'all. So check it out. And Lori, there's a few questions that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
The first is, what does the word purpose mean to you?
Like your why, like what, like why you get up to do what you do, why you put one foot in front of the other. Like, if you don't have some sort of North Star that you're trying to work your way toward, it just all feels kind of silly and futile. So your North Star, your why, your reason that you made the twists and turns that you have to get where you are.
That's right. And when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind?
Kind of where you started, right? It's not about the setback. It's about the comeback. When you're reforging, I reforged my identity. I've had many iterations of who I am in this process. I like this version the most. Like, I hope that everybody feels that way. But if not, if you don't feel that way and like you like the newest iteration of yourself, I think you need to do some soul searching to figure out what's broken. So, you can get to the bottom of it and fix it. But I think we reforge and our path all throughout your life. And it's the journey that makes it all worth it and so interesting. Otherwise it would be pretty boring and mundane, I fear. So.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It would be boring and mundane without that. I mean, it's listen, there's something beautiful about being able to reinvent yourself
Totally.
and come back better than you were.
Yeah.
There's something incredible about it. There's something powerful about it. There's something inspiring about it. I mean, there's so many positives to it. I don't even know of a negative. So yeah, man, I love that definition of it too. And there's somebody out there right now who's looking to reforge their life, and they don't have the tools, they don't have the whereabouts. What's one piece of advice you could give someone who's looking to reforge their life, whether it's in their business, finance, relationship, health, somewhere they're looking to reforge?
I think you have to, until you're good at the skill of looking in the mirror and really giving yourself honest feedback, you've got to surround yourself with those people that are going to tell you like it is, right? Because it's very simple for us to like bury our head in the sand and always think that we're doing it right and we're never causing harm and every choice that we make is perfect. That's not going to get you anywhere, right? So until you can look in the mirror and you can do that work for yourself, have people around you that are going to say like, Lori, that was not cool. You shouldn't have done that. Like, that wasn't the way to go about this. What if you would, how could we have done that differently? Right. You got to have those sounding boards. But I think you have to take really honest looks at yourself, whether it's by alone or with a partner. And then you've got to commit to the process, because again, it's like anything else. Like, I think saying, I promise I'm going to do this. Promise is such an overused word. It kind of loses all of its luster, right? It doesn't have as much meaning. Just like when you say, I'm sorry, if someone says, I apologize, that feels very different than I'm sorry, because we overuse the word I'm sorry. But I think the same thing with commit, right? It's like, not just like I promise, like, but I commit to this, and I don't break promises to myself. So like, if I'm committing to doing this, like, that's a really big, powerful sentiment. And it means that you're willing to twist and turn and redo and purpose yourself to get there. It's going to take a lot of growth. But I think you got to commit to it. You got to find the people that'll be honest with you, be honest with yourself, and then commit to the process.
Yes. Committing to the process is vital for the success in the process you're going through. I think without committing, there isn't success. You got to commit to whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're looking to achieve in life. Without committing, you will not achieve what it is to the fullest potential. So let's just say you could go back into the 80s and 90s, right? And you could tell that young Lori one piece of advice today.
Yep. I got it. I already know. Don't give a shit about what anyone thinks of you, because by the time you get to your 40s, you're really not going to care. Like, and you're going to spend so much energy in your younger years worrying about what other people think. And it just doesn't matter. Like, at the end, it just doesn't matter. Like, it matters what a very core group of people. I care what my kids think. I care what my parents think. I care what my brother thinks. Everybody else, it's like whatever. So like, I wish that I could tell that young girl who cared so much about what people thought, like, Lori, they're not talking about you. They're waiting for their next opportunity to speak. People really only care about what they have to say. Like, no one is going home talking about you or thinking about you. Like, don't worry about what they think. It just doesn't matter. My middle child, Sebastian, he's as cool as his name is. And the kid really doesn't give a shit about what anybody thinks about him. And it's so beautiful. And his whole life, I've said to him, Sebastian, like, he's the kid that would come out, like, I let them dress themselves since they were little. I'm like, it's your expression, like, do it. And so he would come out with like insane, nothing matches. And I'm like, Bass, none of that matches, right? And he's like, yeah, I don't care. And I've told him since the time he was a little kid, Sebastian, your ability to not care what people think about you is the most amazing attribute that you have. Do not ever let that go. Because if I could have known that at your age, I would have saved myself so much heartache my whole life. So that would be what I would tell that little girl. I wish I could get a hold of her. Seriously. Yeah. She didn't have a cell phone because it was the 80s, but in another universe, maybe.
So who this is off topic, but who were your 3 favorite hip hop artists? You said you liked hip hop in the 90s. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of debate, of course, about Biggie and Tupac. I actually kind of like Biggie more, although I do think that Tupac was like he was more poetic. I think he was like there was like a lot of like poetry and art to like what he did. But I also, grew up loving the Beastie Boys. Like, I think that they did something that was like kind of unheard of at the time. I mean, these 3 white boys, and like, they said a lot of stuff that could have gotten their asses kicked for sure. Right. So, I mean, like that was probably like my coming up, but just kind of all of it. I mean, like, now that I'm older, I do find myself saying like, to my kids, like, doesn't it all kind of sound the same, guys? Which is what my parents probably said to me, but like, I don't know.
Nowadays, it's just I don't want to get any bad reviews on my podcast.
Yeah, don't get canceled. Don't get canceled.
It's so watered down. It really is.
Yeah, don't get canceled over it.
Oh man. So Lori, what's one thing the audience doesn't know about you that you enjoy doing for fun? By the way, BIG is the greatest of all time, but go ahead.
Yeah, I really do think so. So I don't know, like, again, I think anyone who spends a little bit of time with me would probably say, like, she's so confident. She always owns the room. She knows exactly what she's up to. But I have a lot of like insecurities and things that I deal with just like everybody else does. I think, again, like nothing will make you take a look in the mirror and what you prioritize, like losing all of your hair and gaining 40 pounds from steroids and constantly being poked and prodded and all of the things. So, it's just, as much as I come across as this super confident, always in charge, always in control kind of person, I have insecurities and I work through this stuff just like everybody else does. And I think that is, again, a really beautiful part of the journey, as long as you are paying attention and you're willing to put in the work. But yeah, I'm kind of a softie. I think people are usually kind of surprised that I'm actually super sensitive and kind of a softie. And that's part of the reason that I kind of hold people back, because I will get too attached. So, don't judge the book by its cover. It's always a little bit different than what you imagine. So,
right.
I
love it. Man, Lori, thank you so much for coming through. I knew that you were going to bring an amazing story, incredible energy, and you did that times 1,000. I really appreciate you coming through, and I'm grateful to have shared the platform with you.
Yes, I appreciate you so much. I'm glad we could sit down and chat. It was fun.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely grateful for that. So, and for all the listeners and viewers out there, don't forget, man, I'm going to ask for the same favor that I always ask. LFSS, like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, share the episode, because there's somebody out there right now who's looking to reforge their life, whether it's in their business, their finances, their relationship, their health, and they don't have the tools. And you sharing this episode or past episodes could help them reforge their life. So don't forget to share the episode. Stay productive, stay purposeful, and stay blessed.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.